So we're going to end this unit with a discussion of waste reduction methods. The symbol you've seen a million times in your life, let's just talk about it a little bit. So basically, if we want to reduce the amount of waste that ends up in landfills, the best thing we do is follow the three R rules, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle. I'm sure you've heard these three words, but let's just get into the details about them a little bit, okay? Look at some of the pluses and minuses of this. So let's just talk about how we can reduce. Right? Reduction is the best thing we can do. So if we reduce the amount of waste we produce, then we've solved a lot of the problem, right? And so how do we go about doing that? Well, first, this may surprise you, but actually being wise about your purchases and not always purchasing the thing that's cheapest. So if you buy high quality products, a lot of times these higher quality, more expensive products happen to last longer. So if you can buy real wood furniture, as long as it's not taken, from a source that's inappropriate, like from a rainforest. But if you purchased solid wood furniture, things that are made out of durable materials, not pressed board like what we see here, not cheap plastic. But if you spend the money to get a better material, it lasts not just throughout your life, but onto other lives. Like, my wife and I, the furniture we have back in the States, it was made like in 1910s, 1920s, and it's just been handed down, from her grandparents to her parents to us. And so, man, but modern furniture tends not to do that if it's not made well. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing is composting, and this is something. And I've got to say, you know what? In many ways, Korea really has a jump on this idea of how to reduce the waste stream. And I know, like in my apartment building, we have to compost, and so the idea of composting is, and keep in mind, again, I've said this many times, this test is really designed for people who are in America. Because it's Americentric, people there often don't compost, and people there have yards, and so when people have yards, they have plants in their yards, and so the idea of composting has this double benefit. So first of all, most food waste in our kitchen, and including scraps of paper, yard waste like grass clippings from when people mow their yard or when they rake leaves, these things, can be composted. Basically, composting is just encouraging bacteria and fungus to eat the stuff, right? So if we just mix these things around over time, they'll begin to generate heat from respiration of these microorganisms, and they will break this food material down into waste products, which are very high in nutrients. There'll be a lot of phosphorus and nitrogen in them, and so it's great to put on your plants. So it's basically you're making your own fertilizer while reducing the waste stream associated with your food. One drawback to it, though, is if it's not done correctly, it becomes anaerobic. So if you don't stir it enough and move it around enough to get oxygen into it, it becomes anaerobic, in which case it stinks. The other problem is if you put the wrong things in it, you end up attracting rodents. They carry pathogens and they make your neighbors unhappy with you, and you unhappy with yourself. So it can be done right, but it also has its potential drawbacks. Another one is to switch to cloth. I mean, there's many things that we can, basically that's a way of reusing things, right? So there's a number of things that could be um, replaced with cloth. The first one that's often used is diapers. Now, people will argue, yes, but if you use cloth diapers, then you end up using more water, and that's true. But right now, we're just talking about reducing waste stream. So, the debate about whether it's better to use disposable diaper or cloth diapers goes back and forth. I think most people decided it's best to use cloth diapers. Another is cloth napkins. My wife and I have cloth napkins, and why not just at your table, instead of having paper that you throw away every night, you just wipe your face with cloth, and then you wash the cloth. Another thing is to use rags, like old T-shirts and socks or whatever, as a way of as rags for washing things like your car and your floor, instead of purchasing products rather we're going to then throw away. So to just try to avoid intentionally disposable things if they could be replaced with paper and with cloth. Okay. Another one is to buy bulk, and I don't see this much in Korea, but I'm kind of limited in the place I go to shop. But in the United States, most grocery stores will have a bulk food section, and the idea is, I just go here and I can just take the amount I want, and I don't have to um, buy all that packages. I think you say I want to go buy some beans. In America, there's a shelf, there's a box. In this cardboard box, there's a plastic bag. In the plastic bag, there's beans. Why not just buy the beans? And just put them. You still have to put them in something, but there's a lot less packaging when you buy bulk. Uh, well, another thing, instead of reduce, we can also reuse, and by reusing, we reduce, right? And this again is something that I'm what we call preaching to the choir here in Korea, because in Korea people are really good about this, but um, in America, a lot of stores basically give people plastic bags that are disposable. So every time they go to the store to buy food, they come home with 4, 5, 6 of these plastic bags that they just didn't throw away. It's an enormous part of the waste stream. Oops, my wife just told me there was no bread today. Okay, but anyway, so switching to cloth bags, which everyone in Korea seems to use here, but that's one thing that in America that a lot of people are encouraging. And another thing is you can use reusable containers. So instead of having a plastic bag that you put your lunch in, you just put it in a container. Again, all the students I see here do that, but in America, too, people usually put things in plastic bags and then throw the plastic bags away. So using reusable containers for transportation is a great idea. Another one, this is kind of an odd one, and they've asked questions about this on the AP test in the past. This is kind of an interesting one. Is you can actually use old tires. You can actually even use old vehicles if you make sure that you're not putting any kind of toxic, oils and stuff in there with them. But to make basically an artificial reef. So a lot of juvenile fish, or fish in general, but juvenile in particular, like to have some sort of a shelter. And so people find that over the years, in the last 100 years, a lot of reefs have been damaged. So they make artificial reefs by tying a bunch of tires together with cables and then sinking them. And it definitely works. One thing though is there have been cases where the things that wanted the reef together, the tire reef together, breaks, and now you have these tires rolling all over the place, bumping into good coral and breaking it. All right, like everything in environmental science, there's pluses and minuses, but it is an interesting way of dealing with it, because let's remember, tires are a real problem. Tires in landfills a lot of times are not welcome because they're such space hogs. And remember, I said in a previous screencast, a lot, places they burn them or they leave them around and they become vectors for places where disease vector organisms like mosquitoes can breed. So this is kind of an interesting solution to a fairly significant problem. And obviously, the other R is recycle. Now, recycling is not just the answer. Okay, so the first thing is yes, it's true. Recycling saves material. We don't have to go and dig the material out of the ground because it's already here. It's also like less energy wasteful. Or to put it that way, more energy efficient. So if aluminum is a big one, it takes a lot of energy to smelt aluminum out of its ore rock. A lot of energy. Okay, it has to be super hot. But it doesn't take much energy at all to take an aluminum can and melt it back down. So it is very much, it saves both reducing the need to dig mines and reducing carbon emissions by using less energy. All right. But there is a backside to it. And that is that, recycling is great, but it's better to not have to do it the first way. Reduction is even better, right? So if recycling is not nearly as energy efficient as just reusing materials, but still, let's just continue with recycling. So how do you get people to recycle? The people's instinct is just throw things away. Right. So one is you educate people. That helps. The other one is have some sort of what we call a carrot and a stick. A carrot meaning you entice people. The idea is how do you get a donkey to move? You entice it with a carrot and you hit it with a stick. So the idea is the carrot is tax incentive. So in a lot of places in America, at least before they had more robust recycling programs, it's still true. In a lot of places, when you buy something that is recyclable, you pay an extra amount of money for it. So there's an extra 10 cents on this bottle. And so when I take it in to be recycled, I get my 10 cents back. So it's kind of like you're investing a little bit of money into the care of this thing, and you get the money back when you turn it in. And that's a pretty good. The stick would be just having penalties for people who don't. If we look in your trash and we see that you aren't recycling, you get in trouble. So between those two, it definitely can help make this aspect of waste reduction happen. Um, Now, one thing I want to take a moment to talk about when it comes to recycling is e-waste. So we talked in a previous screencast that e-waste is a problem because we're talking about like old cell phones, computers, TVs. And the problem with these is they very often contain toxic substances, a lot of heavy metals like lead, cadmium, mercury. Um, And also, there'll be like there'll be flame retardant chemicals involved, or other kind of known endocrine disrupting the chemicals inside them. And so these, you put these in a landfill, then that becomes part of the leachate, and then that's a problem that needs to be dealt with. So clearly, the to if we can recycle these things and extract some of these metals and reuse them, that's a good idea. Unfortunately, it's a real issue right now is that many corporations who are in the e-waste business, rather than paying people a living wage in the developed country where the companies operate, say the United States, they'll take in the e-waste and then they'll put it on a ship and they'll send it to, say, Sri Lanka or China or the Philippines, and they'll send it to countries that don't have worker protection laws. And so what'll happen is the workers will get exposed to these toxins, and have all the health complications as a result of that. And unfortunately, a lot of times they often don't have labor laws, so they don't have child labor laws. So a lot of times it's being done, as the picture shows you, by children, which is just truly tragic. So it's one of those things where it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. The whole thing about environmental science is awareness is what allows us to move in the direction of making things better. And the last thing I want to talk about is this concept of integrated waste management. Just like we can have integrated pest management, which involves having a variety of options available to you, choosing the best option, and collecting data to make sure you're doing it the right way. It's a very similar idea that a municipal government or the agency to which they have assigned this task, what they'll do is they'll say, look, we're going to try to implement the three R's. We're going to try to reduce, reuse, and recycle. And when we can't, we're going to use the landfill. All right. So the idea is to be very proactive and try to educate people about how they can reduce packaging, or work out deals with manufacturers to get a benefit for reducing the amount of packaging that they're using. And then maybe educating public about the benefits of reusing things, and having methods in place to encourage the reuse of materials and to educate people about it. And then the one is to provide mechanisms by which waste can be separated very easily for composting and recycling. And then, and in doing so, you greatly limit the amount of waste that ends up in your landfills. Okay, so that's waste reduction methods, and that's this unit. I hope you do as well in this one as you did on the last unit, because you guys rocked that one.